Yes, welcome. Let's see, I gotta remember to check. I just gotta remember to check the waiting room because
Okay.
there's a waiting room. So I gotta be like, oh, let me go back in. What's up, Jana?
What's up, coach?
Not much. Hanging in there.
Right on.
Yeah, I see a couple people I know over here. What's up, Carl?
Hey, what's going on? Nice hat.
Yeah, gotta represent the man, you know.
It's kind of hard representing that up in Seattle, though.
I get away with it. And people don't tend to mess with me too much up here. Just like I wear my Seahawk stuff up there. They'll be all right.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right. Us Mariners fans can easily trade for the Dodgers.
Oh, boy.
Awesome so much. Well, we'll give it about maybe a minute. Got a couple more people jumping in, and then we'll get going in a minute. So, what you making, Jana?
Refried beans.
Nice.
Ooh.
Yeah, tortas for dinner.
Okay.
Hey, remember, sharing is caring.
Hey, when you come down, whatever you want. Barbecue,
Yeah.
whatever.
You guys are always barbecuing. Always. I love that.
That's right.
We're not excluding all y'all that are in here that I didn't say. Hello, everybody else, too. I'm sorry. Some of y'all don't got cameras on, so I can't see who you are, but thank you for joining us. Looks like my wife even jumped on. Hey, babe.
What's up?
You think he's going to get a shout out?
Shelby's going to be all mad that she didn't get to talk to her.
Oh, man.
So I did send this out to my softball team,
Yeah.
my high school team. So I'm not sure if anybody got a hold of you or not, but I did send it out.
Yeah. Well, tell them if they're interested in seeing a recording. I am recording it, so they can definitely reach out, or we can they can fill out that form. It'll give me their email. I can send it to them. So either way. But yeah, so we're gonna get going. Some of you all I don't even know that are on here. Just kind of wanted to. Should I introduce Danielle or should I let you? I don't know how we're doing it. I kind of just took over for a minute.
Whatever works. I can introduce me. You can introduce you. However you want to do it.
Okay, cool. So I just, since I was already flowing, I'll just flow with it. Hello everybody. I'm Coach Carter. I am head coach at Shoreline Community College in Washington State. Also owner, director of Leadership Athletics. This company is something that I've built basically because I'm seeing a lot of trends in our high school female athletes now where they are putting so much pressure on themselves to be athletes, to perform, to do well on the field. And so the goal and the idea is that we want to use this time, this recruiting process, this atmosphere of being an athlete to grow and develop in other areas. You're destined for so much more. So the idea is that we're going to help you gain those skills, like those communication skills, those written skills, those leadership skills, so that you can own your power in the world. So her is listed completely in my title because I want those of you who are athletes on here to know that this is about you, this is about your journey, and this is about what you put into it, at the end of the day. And so excited to collaborate with my good friend, Coach Danielle over here, Orvella, and she's going to give you a little bit of information about her and her company. And then while we're talking, as we're going through this, definitely feel free to put your questions in the chat. We'll be checking on them. I'm going to go through a basic timeline, but feel free if I don't cover any questions or something comes up, you want to make sure you ask, put it in the chat, and then we'll make sure we get it answered. So Coach Danielle, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you. Everybody, my name is Danielle Orvella. Most call me Coach D. A little background about me. I was a collegiate athlete at Concordia University down in Portland. I pitched for them, and then I came back home to what was Seattle, Washington, and I started coaching at Bellevue College as the pitching coach there. And that really was essentially the last 5 years of my life where I poured into athletes at the collegiate level and transformed them, if you will, physically. And in doing that, I really started to realize my passion for working with the girls as their big sister, as their mentor, and tackling that mental game. So kind of a pillar of what Coach Carter's company is about mine really emphasizes the mindset in how most athletes nowadays deal with performance anxiety. And that's that limiting factor where they're not able to see that physical skill come full circle because what's between the ears. So that is my company. I started my company last year. It was a great time to start a company, 2020, whoop. But I've learned a lot and I am happy to be here as your peak performance coach. Facilitate conversation for you guys to ask questions and for me to then prompt Coach Carter to answer them. And I can give a little bit of background on my experience and answer them as I will as well. But I would say Coach Carter's the professional here, and I can speak to a little bit of my experience.
That's what's up. So, basically I have some notes here. I'll kind of get the conversation going. But again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out and ask them. This is definitely an open space, so don't be shy. I know you got some questions in here, otherwise you wouldn't have joined tonight. So, just as a preface to everything, I have a couple of things that are super important for you to know as parents and as athletes on the call today. And the first thing is that 1 in 13 athletes go on to play at the college level. And so I think we have 17 on here today. So we might get away with 2 of y'all actually going on to play in college. That's how real and realistic this process is. And so it's something that we should all acknowledge and recognize and grow from. The second side, I'm going to say, of those 13 athletes, there's only 2% of them that actually go on to play Division I athletics. So not only is that number getting smaller, it's almost non-existent. So it's a reality. So we're gonna push that to you guys today. And the third thing that I feel like you should all know that's super important is there's a 33% attrition rate. So basically from high school to college, or even while you're in high school, most of those athletes a third of those athletes won't go on to play in college. They'll just quit the sport altogether. And then when you get to college, that's another 33% that don't make it past their sophomore year. So the idea of this is that we're investing so much time, so much money, so much energy into ensuring that these athletes get to post on their social media that they're going to college somewhere. And we want to recognize that we want them to be ready to do more than just post. We want them to get there. We want them to succeed when they get there. And we want them to succeed after they get there. So I do want to also say, I know both of our backgrounds are in softball, but I speak to all athletes. So does Coach Danielle or Coach D. So don't feel the fact that if you're not a softball player here that this doesn't apply to you. We got answers for you as well if you have them, if you have questions for them. So one last stat that I want you to recognize is that our coaches receive so many emails at one time. So if you just take this number, let's say each coach at the Division I level specifically will probably get 100 emails in a day. Okay, that's, if you equate that into a month, that's 3,000 emails in 1 month. Now, if you as an athlete got on the call and you got on the computer and you sent 1 email that week, that's 1 out of 3,000 emails. So you have to imagine that these coaches are not necessarily ignoring you. They probably you got lost in the shuffle. So the idea of this is to push that consistency from the beginning, to continue to find ways to get yourself noticed out there. So those are just a couple of things that I just want to kind of generally put out there so you to know. So as we have these numbers, let's just really think about the idea that we want you to determine what your fit is. So you'll hear now, a lot of people are saying, you might be that 2%, but you might very well not be. And if you're only fishing in that pond of that 2% pond, you're selling yourself short And you're probably also most likely not going to get the attention that you need from the coaches that you need to get the attention from. So let's recognize that right away. It's nothing wrong with you. And in fact, there's potentially so many more options out there that may be better for you. So anyone who's here today, I'm going to be sending out a freebie. It's going to be a Define Your Fit kit. It's going to cover kind of all the notes that I'm talking about now. It's also going to talk about discovering your why. We're going to also give you a little bit on non-negotiables, and then I'll give you a template for you to create your top 10 list. So it's going to kind of give you something to get you going where you can kind of start fixing and figuring out what your Define Your Fit moment is. So talking about your fit, number one thing that's super important, what school you're going there to get an education. So we want to ensure that that school has the degree that you are looking for. That's number one. Number two is we want to make sure that you are financially capable of affording that school. And I think that's a hard conversation for families to have, but we have to have that conversation. So it's good to know, hey, we're going to complete the FAFSA. We're going to need some scholarship help. We're going to need some athletics help. And that's usually why a lot of our parents are so adamant and our students are so adamant about getting scholarships. So having that conversation early is really important. The number three thing we want to think about is the GPA requirements. And let's take a real look at where I am as a student in classrooms. Am I a student that's a 3.3, which could be good for many schools, but there's some schools that require you to be at least 3.6, 3.8. So recognizing that, can I actually get into that program? The next thing that we want to look at in defining your fit is, again, we're looking at the future, not just right now. So we want to know what kind of advancements does the school or the degree offer. So does your school offer you internships? Do they require internships of you? What's their employment rate after graduation? What's their grad school connections? For some of us who want to go on to grad school, those are the things that you want to be thinking about when you're looking at schools as well. And again, we're definitely talking about the bigger picture here. A lot of people don't think this far in advance. Another thing you want to consider is location, right? What are your location needs, right? Do you want to be in the city? Do you want to be in a rural area? Do you want to be in a place where there's public transportation? Do you want to be in a city where there's rain, where there's sunshine? So having an idea of those things that fit you is super important. And then the last thing that I look at, notice that I'm putting this last, but it's athletics. Then we'll start looking at the athletic piece to the puzzle. So those are some things that I consider when you're looking at defining your fit. All right. Anyone have any questions so far? No, thanks, Coach D. You're definitely throwing things out there. I appreciate that. Just want to start off with that point, but any questions that we can answer for anyone at this point?
And I'll add to that, you guys, if you guys have questions as she's speaking, please feel free to put it into the chat. I'm just taking some notes in case I know we are all tech savvy. So if you want to snapshot the note screen in case you don't want to be writing on your paper and then forgetting what Coach Carter is saying. So please take a picture if you need to, or just add questions as you will.
Absolutely. Awesome. So if I don't have any questions so far, I'm going to go on to the next thing. And I think it's a very important and valuable conversation from the coach's perspective on what factors do we as coaches look at when we're looking at athletes? What are we considering when we want to include this person as a part of our roster? And so the first thing that we look at is most likely what grad year we're looking at. So we have usually a list on our wall, and there's usually lists by years, by grad years. And so we start there. The next thing we look at is we take a look at our roster. Let's determine what positions we need. I'm graduating next year, all my outfielders, a catcher, a pitcher. Okay, maybe I could use another middle infielder. Awesome. So in the class of 2021, I'll be looking for those types of athletes, right? So that's the next thing my program needs, right? The next thing I'm going to look at on that list, on that chart, is going to be how this person compares to the other person on that same list. So if I have 2 pictures, so I'd say metrics is a good one for that one. So I'll look at the metrics and I'll say, okay, this person, hits for power. I could really use one that hits for power. Or I lost all my lefties who are my speedsters. I really, really need to get some speed back into my lineup. So I might have 2 left fielders that, one's a righty, one's a lefty. Nothing wrong, nothing different, nothing that is wrong with the other one over the other, excuse me. But my need in this moment is I really need to use that speed. So I'm going to probably go after the lefty first, right? The next thing I'm going to look at is, what is your degree choice? Do I offer that? So, I think it's super important for you as an athlete to go in and look on the website and learn how to navigate that website. It'll tell you under admissions what degrees they have. And the reason why this is super, super important is because I actually worked at a school prior to moving over to Shoreline, where they only had business and psychology degrees. And so when we're recruiting our athletes, don't send me an email, please, and tell me that you want to be a nurse. Like, I can't help you, and we would get those emails. And I will tell you that email goes right to my delete box, so you've kind of already made like not a great impression because you didn't do your research. So recognizing the degrees and the majors of interest, does that school have that? The other thing that I'll look at next when it comes to what recruits I want to recruit, it's going to be what your character is, what your personality fit is, and what your communication skills are. So I kind of lump that into one. I don't know what you would say, but I'm going to say character and personality maybe. And so what we're looking at there is, do you fit our program? And so as a part of leadership athletics, we also do a personality test. And what we're doing with that personality test is learning what your behavioral skills are, and kind of what things you need and what things are your strengths. And so if I have someone that might, so for instance, I am a CD, okay? A C is someone that likes to do things right. And I'm also a D, who someone likes to do things, just get them done quickly. So there's like a person that's like a conflict, but when I'm on the field, sometimes I tend to go from baseline, and I like to build from that baseline because I want to make sure I'm building a foundation, and I grow and I grow and I grow. Now, there's some athletes where they might be an I in that group, and they might be more energetic, more upbeat, and they really need to have someone on the staff that's going to be able to motivate them, that's going to be able to constantly give them an image that's going to fit their needs. And so it's something that I think that a lot of people don't think about, that I think is very valuable to how our athletes can succeed in the program. So having that information is really good. The second thing about that communication piece that I want to bring up is that I've done a couple interviews with coaches over the last month. And one of the things that we brought up in talking about what they look for, what's important to them, is the idea that you get on the phone with some of these recruits and it's like just dead. Like, it's just, you don't have any questions, or you got the same questions that we heard, already 100,000 times. You're kind of monotone. You're not sounding sure or confident of yourself. You're not giving me anything that's telling me that you're really interested in having this conversation with a college coach that potentially can give you an offer that can help you get to the next level, right? So you got to practice that. And I'm going to tell you, even right now, like, I'm pretty animated, and I'm not usually this animated. So I must be excited about being on this call today. So, that's just what it's about. Like, I want you guys to feel this energy, and that's kind of what you want to give off to that coach that you're talking to, right? So if I get on the phone with you and I'm like, okay, she's pretty dead, I just don't even know if she really wants to be here, so I'm just going to kind of move on. So as a coach, that's what I'm going to look for. The next thing I'm going to look for is going to be definitely your grades, your test scores, what they look like. And COVID's definitely presenting some complications with that. We have some programs where you don't need ACT, SATs anymore. But recognize that even if the program, softball program or the basketball program or whatever program doesn't want it, the NCAA still might. And so we have to kind of just make sure you're doing that research to recognize if they actually still need it. And sometimes the school still might, so to help with admission. So asking those questions are going to be super important in that process. The next thing I'm going to talk about is going to be budget. So I've got the list. I got the right grad year. I got the right position. This person stood out to me over the other person. Okay, they want to do something at my school that I know they have a degree for. They have the grades to get into my program. They have a personality where I feel like we can definitely mesh. I'm going to help them succeed. They're going to help push me. Now let's talk about the budget. Can you afford to come to my school? Like if I can only offer you a certain amount, is it going to work? If I couldn't offer you anything at all in this moment because we're in COVID and I got 19 people on my roster, could you make it work with the academic money that they give you? And then hopefully next year we give you a little something. So those are things that you want to definitely look at as you're going through this process. Another thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to really focus on, is going to be ownership. It's going to be what initiative you take and what follow through you're going to have once that's done. So accountability, maybe. Ownership, something. It's the idea that if I give you a task like, hey, okay, great, get me your transcripts so I can get them over to admissions. I really want you to be here. Let me get your transcripts. And it takes you 3 weeks to get me your transcripts. That's probably not a good thing. And it's probably something where we're going to have to move on. So just recognizing that. And another thing that we look at, what I have my final thing on my list is parents. And parents, not necessarily in a bad way or a good way. It's just, are your parents ready to let you be responsible as an athlete, right? Are your parents going to be able to be a support system and not, if you don't get in the game when they come visit and they bash us, are you going to come back to my program the next day and kind of have that attitude? So it's going to be something where they're going to be supportive of you, supportive of our program, supportive of other things that we're growing, in our culture. Those are all things that are going to be super, super valuable to me as a coach determining if I want you to be a part of my program. So that's just a little bit of that as well. I'm just rolling. You guys are a quiet little group today. And let's see, give you a little bit more insight just about me. I also work in admissions. So I have a lot of experience with the actual admissions process of going to school. So, that's something else. If anyone has any questions on admissions, like how do I know what school to look into? How do I get my application in? I'm gonna talk a little bit about that later, but if any questions come up for that, definitely let me know. Go ahead, Coach D.
So as I've been there, I've been through the experience as a high school junior, senior. I didn't really know what program I wanted to go into as far as a degree. What kind of advice could you give us in terms of if that kid is relating to where I was of, hey, I don't know what I want to do for a career just yet?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's two parts to that. The first part, what I'm going to say is, luckily, a lot of our first 2 years of college are going to be general ed based. So you have the opportunity to still think about it. And so you have that moment. So you can do that. Also, community college is also a good avenue. Don't waste the money if you're not sure what you want to do yet. Maybe go somewhere where you could pay a little less and kind of get it figured out. You can also check with their admissions counselors, because a lot of times, for instance, at Menlo, in our first 2 years, we offer a lot of intro to classes. So there might be an intro to business, an intro to marketing, an intro to accounting, which are all majors that we have at our school. And so in that, you can, get an idea, which is very helpful. I think they did a great job with that. So that you're able then to kind of get a feel and say, oh, I kind of like that, or I don't like that. I definitely don't want to do economics. I definitely don't want to do accounting, but marketing, okay, I can figure out that's something good for me. And so recognize and ask those questions to the admissions counselors at those schools to determine like, hey, do I have a little leeway to figure that out? But the second thing I'm gonna say to that is I'm gonna just charge you guys, because we are trying to think about the right fit and the right part of our future. I'm gonna charge you to kind of take some time to, write down a couple of things. Maybe even if you come up with a list of maybe 5 or 4, it still gives you a chance to like narrow down those schools. Like I said, you don't want to go to a Menlo, because you're still trying to figure it out. And then you're like, I don't even want to do business or psychology. So I would charge you guys to spend some time, kind of looking into that a little bit more. So good question.
I just had a question come in from Carl, talking kind of about that communication between player and their maybe potential coach. Do you have an example of a wow question that the athlete can ask the coach when they're talking about the school?
Ooh, that's a good question. Let me see. I've talked to a couple players lately. I think something out of the ordinary that's hey, like I looked on your bio and I noticed that you got your degree in like sport leadership. Tell me about that. Like why did you do that degree? What's your kind of your goal? I think something where you're like digging a little bit deeper than like, oh, I know your record is 10-5, or I know you guys won, so many games. I think something like that. Um, I would even stuff around like, hey, I know that the school is located in the Bay Area. What's your thoughts on like the transportation area? What's your thoughts on the area? Like, it's just asking those questions that are going to stand out a little bit. I'm trying to think of something else. You can ask things about. Go ahead. You got something, Coach?
I didn't mean to interrupt you though, so you can complete your thought.
No, go ahead. I'm kind of rambling.
Okay. So when I coached at Bellevue, a big thing that we would be kind of awestruck if a player would talk to us or ask us about, hey, what's a big pillar amongst your culture and how do you create the culture? I think that would be huge if an athlete were to ask that, because now as a coach, I know where their priority is at. Like they care about that, and they care about facilitating that kind of culture and establishing that.
Yep. Any way you can make it something where it's personal, unique like that. I think that's awesome. Good question. For sure. Let's see. You mentioned. Can't see all of it. What did it say?
Did you get that? Okay, so another question. You mentioned you have to be consistent with sending emails, but I was wondering what to keep sending. Should you send the same email till you get a response, or do you have suggestions on what to send to follow up?
Yeah, I would not continue to send the same email. But what I would do is maybe update, hey, this week I played at this tournament, or this week I did some extra hitting, take a look at my video. Or, me personally, I love it when I can actually build a relationship with an athlete. And so, the moment that I start to feel like I know you, it's awesome. I think one athlete caught my attention one time because on her sports recruit page, she led with like her relationship with her grandma and like how family was so important. And for some reason that really just stood out to me. So finding ways like that, where you're talking about more than just, I want to get a scholarship or I want to play for you. So yeah, I like stuff like that. Let's see. Just like updates, I think. But again, I wouldn't say just include a video as much as you can on all of your emails. Coach, do you got anything on that from your perspective?
I would just second what you said as far as making sure you're creating that relationship. Coaches potentially touch thousands of kids or thousands of emails at months, per month. And I think when you can create a vivid story, or if you can attach something so that coach remembers you, that's only going to help you. You want to be remembered.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely.
I got one for you guys. I
Yeah.
recently heard this. How you doing, Coach, by the way? Well, Coach is here. I recently heard that there's that it's a good idea to request like an ID camp or invite camp. I might have talked to you about this, Coach. What are you guys' thoughts about that, instead of waiting for an invite camp to be sent out to you or asked or requested?
So you're saying versus being invited, just going?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have this like timeline that I kind of put together here that I'll go through a little bit, but I think depending on the time of the process for you, I think it's definitely good. Being proactive is always a great thing that you can do. Nothing wrong with attending the ID camps and showing yourself. And so I think, when you're younger, if you're trying your hardest to get to a Division I level, definitely be intentional with things like that if you know the coach is going to be there. I will say that there are a lot of times, or Division I coaches in general are going to be there. But I do feel like a lot of times in some of the ID camps and some of the camps that these tournaments put on is that they'll promise you certain things, and it's kind of hard because you don't really know. But you know, they'll put these camps on and then no one shows up, you know. And so just recognizing like maybe the reputation of that company. Like I know On Deck does a really good job, and they're usually pretty legit with you know, their connections. And then my biggest thing though is I like to, you know, go directly to the school's camps if possible. So I would see if there's a way to get to those when they have them versus paying money for you
Just
know,
a regular camp.
shooting a half court shot and hoping that it sticks.
Should we ask for it in a email to the coach or to the school?
Yeah, yep. You should definitely ask for it. Definitely when you're sending emails I would always ask like, hey, are you guys having any camps soon? I know I don't see anything on the website, but maybe there's some coming up, or do you plan to be at any of these tournaments that we're going to be attending with my travel ball team? But asking those questions is very valuable, very important.
Thank you.
Yeah, good question. And I would say even like with the ID camps, I think it's also good to ask them like, hey, like who from this school is coming? I see you have them on your website. Like who's coming? Is it going to be, you know, the film person? Or because I mean, I was at a camp one time when I first started and FSU was on the website for Florida State and it was their film guy, you know, and he flew in and flew back out. And it was like, you know, basically he walked around with the shirt on and that's all they fulfilled that duty, you know, so ask those questions. Like I, you know, you're paying all that money for it. Ask those questions. Absolutely.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. Coach D, did you have something else? Let's see.
No, you nailed it, sister.
I have someone else that asked a question in there. I think it was how does running start affect things? So running start as in like you are taking classes during your high school years in college, right? That's what the running start you're talking about. Steve, can you clarify?
Correct, exactly. So my daughter is a freshman this year. She's looking at doing running start.
Yeah.
And so we've been kind of talking and trying to figure out how is this going to affect her. You know, I mean, she's going to graduate with undergrad done, you know, and then so is she limited on playing time? You know, can she play, you know, her junior, senior year and grad years then? They get 4 years of eligibility or not?
Yeah.
Do coaches even care whether someone's already gone through that part of the education side of things? Just looking for some direction there.
Absolutely. We don't care. So we like that. So NCAA clock is you have 5 years to complete 4. So you know, they'll give you that eligibility if you can. I mean, some programs will be hard because you might be going into grad school and, you know, some coaches like that, some coaches don't, but that's just basically on the coach. But the biggest thing with that and anything that you take before you actually go to the college that you're going to is kind of linking into the idea that you need to have an NCAA eligibility center clearinghouse registration. You have to actually be a part of that. So if those of you who don't know, if you're looking to play at Division 1, 2, or Division 1 or Division 2 of NCAA, you have to have a clearinghouse number. And what the clearinghouse is used for is to track your transcripts and your completion towards graduation, basically. And so what will happen is they will collect your transcripts. They will determine, do these courses actually fit into the degree that you're searching for? And that'll determine like your eligibility. So our athletes will either be partial qualifiers, full qualifiers, or non-qualifiers. So that is basically based on your GPA, your credits that you brought in, and what your degree, your process towards completion of your degree is. So my only suggestion to you is that if you're going to take those classes, definitely let the coach know. Let the admissions counselor know, because, you know, luckily she probably don't have to take those classes when she's at that school. So it'll kind of already help her be on progress towards a degree sooner than others. And so, you know, some coaches will like the fact that I only have to pay for her degree for 3 years over 4. So it could really benefit. I don't see any true downside to it, again, unless you're going to a school where you're doing some general ed courses that won't transfer in. So just asking that question is a good question.
And Steve, a little bit to talk to that, because that's what I did. I had my 2-year degree when I transferred in when I went into college as a freshman. The biggest recommendation I have for your daughter is to make sure she has her completed AA. If she transfers a degree short, now all of her credits go independently of each other instead of one lump sum as that associate's degree, if that makes sense. So that's just a little advice I want to throw your way.
And I think, and it does depend on certain schools, because for instance, Menlo, like that wasn't the case. But there are some schools where they'll make them all elective. So it's just different. It definitely depends on the school. So if you know she's going to be a junior, some of these admission counselors will talk to them now and talk to you now and give you an idea of like, hey, yeah, definitely continue to do that or definitely not. And I think also you always want to target those math and those English courses early if you can, those histories, because those usually are ones that are going to for sure count for something, those social studies, things like that. So I would consider those. A lot of students will have to do a placement exam when they go into a 4-year university or even a community college. So if you have math and English at the college level, they usually will waive that. So I would target those types of classes. Yeah.
Cool. And then with that clearinghouse number, is she going to have to get that then before she starts the running start thing?
No, but I would suggest your junior year that she gets it. So she should have it her junior year. And then you would want to let your high school counselor know that she wants to play at the collegiate level, and that counselor should be the one that's kind of sending in the transcripts to the NCAA and making sure that things are certified and things like that. So they're supposed to be able to help that. And then the clearinghouse number, yes, it's mainly, it's only for athletes. If you're not planning to play at the next level, you don't need that.
Okay. And then Coach D, you were talking about that you went from a 2-year program into the 4-year. Is that still something that, I mean, because I've talked to some people that basically say, hey, it's better just go straight to the 4-year school that you want to go to. There's not really much transferability from going to like the community college, and getting your AA and then going in. A lot of people, as far as teachers, don't like to see that. They want to see you in the program, basically the whole 4 years type thing.
I think that once again, it varies kind of your level. With the going from 2-year to a 4-year, I wouldn't expect your daughter to go from a CC to a D1, at least in this area. Now, if you're in California and you're at a CC, it might be a little different. And Ashley, you can or Coach Carter, you can speak to that a little bit more. But personally with me, I was in a situation financially, I had to take that route. And academically, I was at the top of my class, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. And so the 2-year really allowed a easy transition for me to get my prereqs done. And then I went down to Concordia and played with them. And it worked for me. Steve, I think to answer, it is a broad answer, but everybody's situation is a little bit different. And once we kind of can filter out, hey, what schools is she looking at? Then we're going to have a better idea on how to exactly answer that question.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
That was a good point for sure. And yes, I was going to say there are definitely some California schools, and you just have to do your research. I know there's a couple of schools in Oklahoma, Texas, where they do have a high transfer rate into a Division I school. So yeah, it really, really depends. And so, if that ends up being someone's route, we definitely are able to help support them in that process as much as they want. So, and then Jana had a question about on-deck camp reports, the benefits of it. Jana, I would say specifically right now with COVID, I believe those reports are pretty important because I think the coaches, again, they trust the on-deck system, I believe, a little bit more than some of the other showcases. So I do say that they do, but again, nothing is better than actually being able to watch the player play, check their mannerisms, check their responses to how they fail or succeed. But yeah, at this point with COVID, I will read the on-deck probably a lot faster than I would take anything from, no offense, but NCSA or anything like that. So I would, they're definitely a more trusted source than, you know, some of the other companies that are out there. So good for you to know. Awesome. So feel free to keep putting them in there. We got about 20 more minutes left. So I'm just gonna maybe give us some tips for our athletes out there. So, you know, one of the athletes that, one of the advices that I can have, and I keep stressing that, is definitely determining your fit. And so, like I said, I'm going to give you all a sheet that'll kind of help with determining your fit. But it's basically the things I talked about earlier: location, price, cost, GPA, majors, things like that. Another tip that I want to give you from a college coach is, you know, if you are in the recruiting process, which in some cases that's 7th grade through your senior year, or even if you're a community college through your 2nd year of community college, like, check your emails and respond, because that is something that it sucks when, you know, we actually get to the chance to send you something and then you don't respond for 3 weeks. So I have a player like that right now, where I've talked to her since the summer, and, you know, at this point I'm kind of getting over it a little bit. So you know, that's definitely one thing. Another thing would be to watch your social media. Social media will hurt you more than it'll help you if you're not careful. And sometimes you don't realize what you're posting, but it could even be you liking something that doesn't fit with what we like. It could be something where you're sharing or you're retweeting, and that could be something that can really turn off a lot of coaches. So really, really watch your social media. Another one that's a myth is that basically the recruiting process starts, as far as coaches being able to see you in person, invite you to their campus, is usually within your junior year. So for our Division II schools, that's going to be June 15th going into your junior year. For our Division I schools, that's going to be September 1st going into your junior year. So even though we have those dates, definitely recognize that we will recruit you, we'll have you as an interest most likely way before that. And so don't think that it's going to start on that day. It's going to start way before that. So start preparing for it now. Not to put any pressure on those that may be past that, but just recognize that, like, some people have been in the funnel or in the system for a little bit. So just recognize that. Go ahead. You got something, Coach?
Hey, Coach Carter, going back to the social media, just because it came into play so much when I was a coach, and more I'm seeing athletes create their softball account and put it packed full of videos, and then they have their social account in which maybe they think is hidden from the coach. Can you speak a little bit to the importance, or maybe it's really not significant for them to have that softball account?
Yeah, no. So yes, I honestly, softball Instagrams is almost like spam. Sometimes it's almost like, what's the real you, you know? And so we want to be able to see my pictures with my friends, or I'm out, you know, at the beach today, or you know, I am, you know, with my family on Thanksgiving or whatever. Like, we want to see you, what your personality is, who you are. And so in a lot of ways, that softball Instagram is like spam, you know, and it's also kind of like, you know, having another NCSA, you know, basically we're going on to watch your video. So, you know, you might as well be able to show us a little bit more personality of who you are. Good question. Yeah. And then let's see. I want to just point out something else that I think is super important for families to recognize, is that, you know, yeah, you might end up going the community college route, but in a lot of cases where we are now, our athletes are not getting full softball scholarships or full athletic scholarships. We have to recognize that and know that, like, we need to figure out ways to start saving money in a different form, or understand that, like, there may be some loan situations that are going to be prominent in this recruiting process. And so kind of just getting a better understanding of that. I can give you basic of two loans, just basically because I do admissions as well, like I said. So, we have an unsubsidized loan and we have a subsidized loan that most athletes will, or most students in general will qualify for when they complete their FAFSA. And so with those loans, you're able to take some or all of them every year. They're usually like $5,500 and then like $2,500. So one is going to accrue interest while you're in college, and one's going to accrue interest once you're graduated and on to college. So definitely just kind of having that understanding that we don't want to do this, so let's find other ways, or recognize that, hey, we're in our junior, senior year. We haven't put really too much away for school. You don't expect to get it all from the softball side or the athletic side. Some schools will offer some academic money as well. I'm just going to go back to Menlo because that's what I know. But besides, I actually coached at a Division II school. So at my Division II school, we were able to offer it's called stacking. So we got you athletic aid and we got you academic money. Menlo, on the other hand, only offers one or the other. So you either get the academic money or the admissions money or the athletic money. And so you have to kind of play with that and recognize that as well. So that's something. I think there's some questions that came in.
Yeah. So the first question is, what is the current guidance for upperclassmen? And Jana, do you mean that in that high school, right? High school upperclassmen?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So looking at junior year, you basically, so I would say get that eligibility center situated right as soon as you can. You need to have a skills video if they don't have a skills video already. So let's get that going for them. Let's see, it's mostly the hardest year academically. So making sure that our athletes stay focused, while they're in those classes, definitely take those ACT, SAT courses or class tests now, because if you need to retake them, you have some time to do that. I have this idea here where you move from a top 15 list to maybe a top 10 list. So start thinking more realistically on like the measuring in where exactly I want to go. Again, talking about those recruiting timelines. So, June 15th, September 1st, basically you could have been sending emails, and again, you'll get this paper, but you could have been sending emails since you were in 9th grade, since you were in 7th grade. That's completely fine. But now we can start getting that interaction where hopefully they start responding back to you. So there's that. I think with COVID, I definitely don't think that social media is all bad. Again, I just don't think you should have a spammy account, like use your real account and find ways to interact with those coaches. So sending them the little clips of your videos, things like that. I would definitely start also doing some visits. So they could be unofficial. I know a lot of us are going to certain tournaments now, and if you're not, that's completely fine. But if you are, take advantage. Like if I'm going out to Arizona, like I might as well see if there's some schools that I can go drive around and take a look at and determine if they are something that I could potentially go to, or maybe I could find my fit there. But it's getting an idea of the atmosphere, what's around the school. Is it too big? Is it too small? Get a good feel for that. I would be pushing to attending the camps of the schools that you want to go to. So again, getting to their camps as much as possible. Again, COVID's kind of pushing that back, especially for our Division I schools. But, some schools, I found one school that actually did some virtual stuff, which is pretty interesting at Division I level. So they did it virtual over COVID. So find out if they do stuff like that. And so those would be kind of some of my advices. Definitely start figuring out the admissions requirements as well of those colleges that you're looking at, determining, basically what are they going to need to get in. Some schools will even start accepting applications for some early schools like the NAI schools. I know Menlo, we would start accepting our juniors in June of their senior year. So once they finished their junior year, we were opening up our admissions applications for them. So certain schools will do that. So I'd say some stuff like that.
Coach Carter, as far as junior year, yes, you're starting that communication with the coach. When typically will that junior or that senior sign and have kind of that peace of mind, or maybe they don't sign to that school they really want, and when should they know, hey, I probably should move on to the next school on my list?
Yeah, so I mean, unfortunately, you can verbal commit, I mean, 7th grade, 8th grade. Realistically now, though, I think that a lot of trends are shifting as far as in softball, that they're not trying to verbal commit their athletes, at least so they can have an actual phone conversation with them and like actually talk to them a couple times. So, you know, a lot of people are verbal committing their junior year. And so verbal commits are good, but you just know you can't actually sign on the dotted line at the NCAA level until you're an actual senior. So you can be verbal all you want, and verbals can be good because you can kind of get your mind clear, but there can also be a downside to that because some coaches will leave that program, or you know, COVID hits and now I have 20 people, 25 people on my roster and I don't have the room anymore, but I verbal committed you. Like they can easily back away from that deal, and you can also. So just recognize that. So I would say while you're in that process, kind of asking those questions like, hey, are you going to be, you think you're sticking around? Like, you know, just kind of get a feel like, hey, where's your family? You know, like, you know, how long have you been here? You know, are you looking to go somewhere else, or do you feel set here? You know, do you feel comfortable here? You know, how you like in this position at this job, you know, at this school? Like kind of getting those questions. I think they may be a little intrusive, but I think they're important questions for you to be able to ask. But yeah, so you'll be able to actually sign. There's an early signing period that for most athletes is in November of your senior year, and then the actual signing period is going to be in around April of your senior year.
I have one more question. Sorry. What if you can't take the ACT or the SAT right now?
Yeah, then I think it's great to ask those questions to the admission side of the school, because usually right now there's definitely been some waivers for the NAIA, and I think there's been some waivers for the NCAA as well as for certain grades. So usually their 2021 class they've waived. So that's fine. If the school's still asking for it, then you'd want to go directly to that school and ask like, hey, well, what do you expect me to do if we can't actually take it, you know, and see what they say.
So I have one that came in. What do you think about walk-on athletes, Coach Carter?
You know, I don't think I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I just think there just needs to be an understanding and an agreement, and a satisfaction, I guess, internally, because I do know that even though talking about scholarships is confidential, somehow people find out that you were a walk-on or you weren't within the team. And so I think it's super important to keep that, first of all, between you and the coach if you can, but have an understanding of what that looks like, what that means. You know, do I still get to participate in everything? Am I getting all of the same gear? You know, do I get to travel? Because a lot of times, you know, you have to get on there and really earn that spot, you know, and so that's just something you have to recognize early. And again, if it's all in your fit, if it's a school that you want to go to, it fits everything that you're asking, that checks all those boxes, and you know you can work for it and you're confident in that, go for it. I don't necessarily have an issue with having a walk-on. So what's your thoughts?
I would agree with you. I think that's kind of, you have to be comfortable with it, whether you're a motivator on the bench or, you know, if you want to be a starter, then I would say prepare yourselves for some hard work, or maybe think about another option.
Yep. And I think another thing that's super important is just really like understanding your role and being authentic. So I had a conversation with UCLA grad. She's now coaching at Cal State East Bay. And we're talking a lot about what are maybe some of the things that we wish our athletes would have had when they came into our program that they don't have now, right? When they got there. And one of them is really understanding what your role is and like who you are authentically, and owning who you are and not trying to be someone else or someone that you're not. So that's the difference between working hard and trying to be something that you're not. So if you recognize that, hey, I'm coming in as a walk-on, like, sure, but I know I can beat this person at this spot. Absolutely. But don't try to emulate the things that they're doing. That's not really you, you know, because I'm telling you, I'll give you an example of one of my athletes who just committed to Cal Lutheran that I used to coach. And She went out to visit a school in Texas, and basically she's a middle infielder, and the coach was just like, right now, like you're just not the spark plug that I need in that program. And I've coached her for the last 2 years, and although she is definitely a leader and she's vocal and she works hard, she's not a spark plug, and that's okay, and I think she started to recognize that like, hey, like if I have to go out there every day for the next 4 years and fake being a spark plug, like how uncomfortable am I going to be? How confident am I going to be? Like, I can't keep that up. I'm going to eventually be like, look, this is too much, like, because I'm being something that I'm not, I'm not being authentic and true to myself. So she found a program now where they love her, who she is. She can be that silent leader. She can be that person that steps up and shows by example, leads by example. And it's a better fit for her. And there's nothing wrong with that. And that's what you want to be able to recognize and find in the schools that you go to. Absolutely.
Hey, Coach Carter, I have 2 other questions. I know you kind of have a little bit more on your timeline there.
Okay, I'm going to send it to people, so they're gonna just have to get it in their email.
Okay, sounds good.
And a side note, I also can do a complimentary call with any of these people who are on the call as well. So just let me know. I definitely can talk to them.
Okay, perfect. Advice on sending videos, length, should they include game film?
That's an awesome question. And I would say every coach is different, unfortunately. I would say definitely have an actual skills video first. So the skills video, what you want to do is keep it to, 2.5 minutes, 3 at the max. The best thing about the skills video is you want to be able to put your strengths first. So say I'm a better hitter than I am a defender. I want to be able to put that first. That's because, again, a coach is going to probably look at 30 to 45 seconds of that video. And then if they find the interest, they're going to continue to keep watching. Or they're going to say, okay, they just don't really fit the program that or the atmosphere that I'm looking for. So put your best stuff first. So have a video that is all encompassing. And then what I suggest personally with all my kids that I work with is a YouTube channel where we're putting, different types of videos up on the YouTube channel all the time. So you might find on the YouTube channel, maybe there is some game footage on there. So the coach can have an option to look at the game footage, or, maybe there is an option to just watch you hitting off the tee in your garage, like getting some glove work in your house, and you're just on the wall doing tennis ball work. Like we love to see all that. I also want to ask all of you, if you haven't done it yet, to include some ladder drills, some mobility drills. I'm actually can see like how you move, like, are you athletic? Can you actually move your feet? Do you have good rhythm? Things like that. So I would say put a little 30-second clips up there of that would be also good. So with the YouTube channels, you have one link, you have multiple videos. So my suggestion would be, if you're doing introductions in your skills video, if you are sending continuous emails to a coach, then include a YouTube channel.
I love that. I've never heard of the YouTube channel thing. So
Really?
yeah, I dig that. Yeah, really.
Yeah.
One other question, if there's more you want to add on to that video question, guys, just put it into the chat. How involved should the parents be, and in what aspects?
Yeah. I got a whole list on here, but it's not that much. It's, the biggest thing, and again, I push her so much. Like, I push the idea that this is literally her journey, and I think we just need to be able as parents to recognize their true desires to go on and play at the next level. Do they actually have what it takes? And I think as a parent, sometimes we want to push our athletes to get out there and get some extra reps. And I would just say, you can encourage them to do that, but if they're not going to gradually continue to do that, let's just have another conversation about, hey, are you really serious about this? Do you really know what it takes to play at the next level? And just kind of having those conversations with them. I would also say, definitely do not email the coaches for your athletes. Make sure that you are allowing them to, again, own their journey in this process. You can definitely check their emails though before they send them if you want to reread them. So make sure that it sounds right. That if I have athletes that I work with, I actually have them send me their emails first so I can check for grammar and does this make sense, or are you typing a text message in an email? So I'll definitely have them check that. And I think one thing, if I can be on my soapbox for 2 seconds, is praise them for who they are, and their value and their worth as people, as your daughters, and not as much as who they are as athletes and how they're doing on the field. If I can just say that, like, there's right now, there's so much turmoil in our athletes because they're trying so hard to please their parents through their athletic capabilities. So if we can find ways to just, be their parent, be their support system, be their love, their comfort, I would really like that. I would say another thing that parents should do is have the conversation with your athletes about what your plan is for them to go to college. Like, have you thought about financially how this is going to work? Like, hey, you might have to be responsible for your first year, or I'll help you your first year, but you need to recognize that your second year, you're going to have to figure it out. Like, having those conversations as early as you can is pretty good. I think it's something that could be really, really helpful to your athlete and to the process. Let me see what else I put on here. Yeah, I think those are like literally some of the same things that I already talked about. So yeah.
Yeah, I would ditto that, Coach Carter. I think I would stand on that soapbox with you and say that as well. The number one response to what athletes dread the most is the car ride home, because the parents want to tell them what they did wrong and why didn't you do this? And you don't need to be that voice, because I'll tell you right now, as an athlete myself and one that coaches 50 of them a week, they're already beating themselves up. So how can you facilitate that praise and have them understand, hey, I have to love myself in order for myself to perform at my highest ability. So I would fully get on that soapbox with you, Coach Carter.
Yeah. Our athletes, and just sorry, one more thing, our athletes right now, like, there's literally a study out right now, and I don't want to talk about the negative side of that, but one of the issues that we're having is perfectionism and resiliency. And so, our athletes are so used to seeing on social media all of the good things that are happening, but you recognize that they are seeing all of the filtered things, all the things that, like, after 5 shots of pictures, this is my best one, this is the one that's going on my social media. So they're kind of conditioned to see what is perfect versus what is reality and what was the process in that. And so, every journey is different. Every athlete is different, but be their support system. If you want to hit them ground balls, let them lead that though. Like, let them say, hey, I want to go out to the field today, and you have them lead that process. And, if you find mentors, I think Coach D and myself are really big on, if we have athletes that come work with us, that we want to be like their hype man, their big sister, their mentor. We're going to give them the tools that they need to tell them, hey, get out there and do this if this is really what you want. Like, let us do that for you so you can be their love and their comfort and their support and their safety net.
And I think in these conversations there's going to be tough conversations, and sometimes they're really intimidating and we avoid them at all costs. And I think in these conversations of the budgetary items that we have to consider, or, okay, your daughter wants to go to Texas and you're like, gosh, I don't want her to leave home. And you put that desire of what you want on them, you have to ask them questions to stimulate that response. And so I encourage all my parents out there to start with questions. When you say, well, I would love to see this, now that athlete no longer feels like they can say what they want if it is by any means different. So really, I encourage you to ask those questions for them to self-discover, like Coach Carter was saying.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so look, at this point, I'm a coach, and there's times where I used to go over all the time and didn't care much about people's where they needed to be next. And I've definitely grown in that area as a coach. And so, you know, I'm gonna say that this can wrap up. I'm happy to stay on if anyone has any additional questions. But I would also say, like, you know, I'm gonna send you guys, like I said, this sheet. It'll probably be tomorrow because I have to drive an hour home after this. But I will get it to you. I will also have a replay of this, so feel free to you know, request it if you want. And you know, we're here, so we're available for phone calls. We're available to talk to you all about this process a little bit deeper, talk to you more about what we do individually as well. So definitely reach out, and we'll both be reaching out. Coach Danielle's going to also send probably an email as well. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you guys for jumping on. This is awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. It was great to see all you guys attend tonight.
Thank you guys for your time.
Awesome.
Yep.